Welcome to your January edition of Playdate for 2021. This is our monthly podcast where we talk about all the games we've been playing and we look ahead to the games that are coming out this month. I'm joined today by two lovely co-hosts in Tim and Keith.
Yo.
Hello. Tim, let's start with you. I want to know, we've been on break for a while and we've just come back today over the Christmas break, and I want to know what games you've been playing. How have you spent the Christmas season?
So I have been playing not too much new, but as far as new stuff, or at the very least new to me, so we had Hades, a lot of Tetris because I got Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, then I got back into like Tetris 99, I picked up Tetris Effect because that was on sale on Epic, right. And then, you know, you've got Sephiroth with Smash, and then the Monster Hunter Rise demo, which we've already put through its paces pretty well. Nice.
Keith, what about you then? What games kept you warm over the holiday season?
Plenty of retro PS1 games. Well, a couple at least. Cyberpunk 2077, Hades, and the Monster Hunter demo, of course.
Yeah, of course. One of the games you've been playing as well that we haven't talked about since we last spoke, and we'll only mention it briefly because we got a lot to go over today, but you were streaming the Bravely Default 2 demo, and you looked like you were having fun with that.
Yeah, I was having fun with it. It's tough as nails kind of game, and I was playing on normal difficulty.
Right. So as we're recording this, this is on the final day of Awesome Games Done Quick, which is their annual sort of seasonal, if you count Summer Games Done Quick, their like speedrunning marathon for charity. I sort of dipped in today. Like I haven't realized it's been going on, but I was able to dip in before I was recording Playhouse Live, and I happened to catch the Beat Saber section.
That showcase was crazy.
Whew, wild.
I mean, in general, that game is crazy.
Yeah. But no, they were just like, I've seen people play Beat Saber fast, like in person. Never anything like that. It's just insane to me how, like, the girl who's playing it, she was talking about it, and she's like, if I think about how to do this, I will fail, and I will not hit any note. It's all muscle memory.
Yeah.
It's just like,
nuts. Her and Scent, who is one of her commentators and one of the hosts of the event, because Kung Fu Fruit Cup's also actually a event host on top of being the one doing that showcase. But he mentioned that with other rhythm games, like, you get used to patterns and you'll have the thought cross your mind of, how am I doing this pattern right now? Because like, you become cognizant of the fact that it's a difficult pattern and you think, how am I doing this? And then all of a sudden you're not.
Yeah. You're using that brain power on thinking about thinking, and that leaves no room for thinking. So yeah, it's nuts. But generally, I've missed out on most of I can't pronounce it, AGDQ. But like, that's always just a good time. It's always great to have on as like background stuff, and like just throw a quick donation too, just to feel good.
Oh yeah, and I haven't watched it, and I'm kind of avoiding it until I finish the game. But one of the games on our doc to talk about here, Hades, was there.
By chance, do you know like what the time was?
It was an hour.
Okay, an hour.
Insane. Just insane. Yeah.
And I assume that's for like a new game, because I think that people are already getting like sub 30-minute runs on like full builds.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So the Hades run was 3 different weapons. It was an end game build. So it was 3 different weapons within an hour.
Oh, okay. So really 20 minutes ago. Okay. So, as mentioned, this is where we talk about what games we've been playing. So let's start off with the new hotness. Get it on the eShop if you can. Monster Hunter Rise demo is available. Keith, let's start off with you because I've been seeing you tweet about it, and I want to know sort of more thoughts that you have about it. Tell me about what you've been playing in it and like how you felt about it.
So I've been playing a mix of weapons: sword and shield, switch axe, and hammer, and a little bit of light bowgun sprinkled in. And the game feels reminiscent of World, but the movement tech is just out of this world. You can do some amazing things in it.
So in terms of like, I think of movement and I think of like fast-paced action in Monster Hunter. How does this run on Switch, first of all?
I'm not one to really say how it runs. Tim might be more able to, but
it runs pretty surprisingly well. Like,
really?
When we saw that it was the RE engine, which we associate with like Resident Evil 7 and 8 and Devil May Cry 5, like high fidelity, like heavy load games, you know, you hear that it's in that engine, and then the trailers like didn't do it too much justice either. I was surprised I feel like we only had one majorly impactful frame drop in the entire series of hunts we did, and I think that was more from our internet connections than from actual like hardware limitations. Like, I think Astral Chain pushes my Switch more than Monster Hunter Rise does.
Huh. That's strange. Yeah, I definitely do remember... God, I can't even remember. It must have been some direct where they talked about it. But I do have this, like, faint memory of, like, looking at it and going, ugh. Like, it was just, I guess, at that time didn't present itself well. But I have been hearing that it runs quite good on Switch, which is great to hear. Keith, you were talking about, like, I always love to talk about vibes in games, and you seem to get an instant vibe off of the like title screen.
It's relaxing. I could sit on the title screen for like 20 minutes at a time and just not care. In fact, I did. We were waiting for people to gather up for our hunts, and I was just sitting there on the title screen listening to the music. Everybody thought I was hunting.
To the point that he like zoned out.
Yeah. And they're like I love that in video games where you just exist in a world and enter a zen-like state. Horizon was really good for that for me. Just like sitting down and just looking at everything. You know what I mean? Tall night going by. Love that in video games. But in terms of like, obviously you were able to do some online stuff, squad up, hunt some monsters. How did that work out? I always want to compare this game to Monster Hunter World, right? Because I feel like that was I genuinely don't know, because obviously like on 3DS this was already a big deal, but I feel like Monster Hunter World was like a new era for this franchise. And so like after Monster Hunter World, where do you think this sort of sits?
It's a middle ground.
Okay. Yeah, as the Switch would be, if you think between like the PS4 and the 3DS, it would be the middle ground. So
well, but even as far as like general game concepts, like this is a middle ground between like Monster Hunter GU on the Switch and Monster Hunter World, where Monster Hunter GU was like evolution of classic Monster Hunter, whereas World was more of a way to get fresh blood into the franchise. And so now you're having a game that's kind of trying to bring those two sides together.
Yeah. Yeah, because the Switch is like, I feel like more successful than the 3DS, but that's hard to say because the 3DS was insanely successful. But maybe, again, as you talk about that sort of like midpoint in the Venn diagram between like what you consider the like super in tune us style gamers and like the casual like people who play Animal Crossing and not much else. I feel like, you know, maybe Monster Hunter's not for them, but at least they'll know what's on the console that they're on and they might like think about it. So I feel like Monster Hunter and Capcom generally are in a really good spot with this. So yeah, like obviously we at Playhouse stand demos. Gameplay, hands-on, always the best way to showcase your game. How are you guys feeling about Monster Hunter then going forward, looking forward to this release date, which I think is in March?
March 26th, I think.
Yeah, I think I nailed that. So yeah, how do you guys feel about that leading up to that release then?
I always think, and Keith, I think you agree with me on this to a fair extent, the demos don't put their best foot forward. Like, especially in terms of how the games handle multiplayer. Like, that's probably what I'm most worried about is people will think that the way multiplayer works on these demos is the way it works in the main game, which is not the case at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because the demos are all a system of, hey, you've got to make a lobby, and in that lobby, you've got to like send your code out to your friends, and they've got to put in the code, and then they've got to put in a password if you password lock the room, and they only give you like a minute to get everyone into the lobby on top of that. And
I can imagine that's stressful.
Right,
Oh,
it is. And then you have regular Monster Hunter multiplayer, which is you go to a multiplayer hub area and your friend, and you can set it to be like friends only, and your friends can just join your hunter's hub, and you all sit there and you gather around and you eat food and you buy your items and stock up on your gear, and then you all go to the quest counter, sign up for the quest, and leave.
Yeah. But like generally once everyone was in there, did you guys like, I feel like Monster Hunter at its best can be just like silly fun with friends and like just this feeling of cooperation and like teamwork and like, let's gather together and let's just take this thing down. Did you guys get that sensation as you played through this demo?
Always. For me, at least.
Yeah. And especially on that last hunt we did, because so one of our friends, and I think all of us initially were expecting it, these demos have always had 3 monsters, a beginner, an intermediate, and an advanced level monster. And This one only had 2, the beginner and intermediate. So we thought, killing the intermediate would get us an advanced monster to pop up, but nope, not the case. So after all of us had killed the intermediate one, we just decided, well, there's 3 total monsters in that intermediate hunt. Let's just see if we can kill all of them within the single 55-minute time limit. And so I'm sitting there running around the map, getting buffs and maxing out my stats and all this kind of stuff while they're all off beating the shit out of this tiny little bird monster. I popped up for the end of that. Then we all killed Rathian, and then we all went and just like pummeled the big monster of the quest into the ground. And
nice.
There's just like, once you get everyone grouped up together and everyone's got their rhythm and everyone like has just gotten into the full flow of the fight, it's beautiful. Like I said to a friend, because I was playing the longsword, like it really, that and some other weapons that really have a rhythmic feel to them, things like a charge blade, make you understand that concept of like fighting as a dance.
Mm-hmm.
Because there really is like a flow and a rhythm that you can get into to like managing your resources and avoiding monster attacks. It's just all it's like Tetris players get with their Zen states. There's just a point where it just flows naturally and it feels really good.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have me with the hammer just bashing face. There's no Zen, only hanger.
Yeah. I always feel like I'm always like worried to dip into Monster Hunter, especially since like most of the people I know who play it have been playing it for a while, like they're veterans. But I feel like if I went into it with those players, I would be annoying as hell because I would just be so probably infatuated with every new weapon that I would just like try things out and experiment with things. And I feel like in that game, especially against a really hard monster, you would need to be like focused and like just do your task and do it well. But I feel like I'd be like way distracted with everything that game has.
That's the thing about Monster Hunter. The only consequence to losing a hunt is, oh, we just have to restart it. That's it. There's no real, oh, I've lost like materials because of this. No, because they give you some consolation materials for breaking monster parts. Parts drop on the ground, you get to keep. So when a new person comes in, it's easier for the veteran players to just keep playing and let the other person experiment.
That's
And
cool.
plus-
I was like that.
Like, the content that everyone takes seriously does not appear until after you've beaten the main story. And by the end of the main story, most people would have figured out one or two weapons that they're going to stick with.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I like when they do things like that. Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I feel like even without playing it, I feel that this franchise is in such a good spot. There's such a feeling of hype around this release. Like, whenever the demo dropped, it made the eShop buckle. Like,
Yeah, and this is
crashed.
in no small part to World. Like, World made the games, like, it made the franchise blow up.
What did it was Sean Layden presented at a stage, and he was like a cult fan base in Japan, which I thought was like overselling it a little. Like, it was bigger than he made it out to be at the time. But I do think that World, as you said, brought in this whole new just like boost of players. So yeah, always good to see. And now that's paying dividends with the Switch.
Well, like, so all three of us in Playhouse, the three of us particularly watch a good share of anime. There's an anime Wotakoi, which is like the full English name is something along the lines of like it's hard to love an otaku.
Yeah.
Like the characters in that play Monster Hunter. Like, characters in multiple animes play Monster Hunter or some parody of Monster Hunter, because Monster Hunter is extremely culturally relevant in Japan, and part of that is because like the PSP and those systems that had like the local wireless play capabilities, a lot of those like local wireless multiplayer games really took off in Japan because of just the way Japanese infrastructure is and travel and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. You mentioned that show Otakoi as well, and yeah, like you said, like a bunch of anime will normally, like if they're playing a video game, it'll be some variant of Monster Hunter. Like, it's normally not Monster Hunter outright because like licensing issues and copyright and stuff, but like even without saying the name, you'll see it and the anime will be like winking at you and it'll go, yeah, it's Monster Hunter, we know.
Oh yeah, well, and the funny thing with Wotakoi though was that one was actually straight up Monster Hunter, and I remember one of the characters complaining about not getting a plate.
I very rarely see like the official game in anime. I remember I was watching the new Crunchyroll original, Tonikawa, I think it was called, and I was like really taken aback when like they have a Street Fighter V tournament in that show, but it's actually like Street Fighter, and they show extended sequences of gameplay. I'm just like, whoa, it's an actual video game.
Oh yeah, well, and then there was the show Gamers, which that had Guilty Gear in it, like just straight up Guilty Gear. And cool. High Score Girl as well really took off, especially in the fighting game community.
I always like, I feel like whenever I see a video game and even a TV show, even if it's not an anime, I always look like that Leonardo DiCaprio gif where he's pointing at the TV. It's like, there it is.
Yeah, like the closest we've gotten to that, like, I think the most major instance of that we've gotten, and I hate that it was Fortnite, but it was Fortnite in the Avengers. Because Thor's just sitting there playing Fortnite, and they have the like shitty 12-year-old come on and start insulting Korg, and then Thor just like gets on the mic like the big brother.
So great.
I'm the god of thunder.
But going back to Monster Hunter, I think the point we raised initially was that this was no small franchise before,
right?
But it's now getting bigger, and so I think the optimism is there for sure. Keith, any final words you want to say about the demo before we move on? I know there wasn't a lot to sort of go off, but anything else you want to
add? Just for anyone who's listening and they want to try the demo, don't take the full demo at face value. because the demo is kind of not putting its best foot forward when it comes to making your lobbies and everything like that and showcasing the full power of the weapons and armors. Just find a way to turn your brain off. Find a weapon that works for you and just go at it. You'll find yourself, enjoying it a lot more.
Oh, and a full disclosure for those that are looking to try the demo. In single player, you are hard capped at 30 hunts in the demo.
Okay.
And that's kind of shitty. If you manage to make it to that cap and you want to play more, you can just delete the save data. Just make sure you complete the demo again if you decide to get the main game, because there is like a bonus item pack that you get for having demo save data once you launch the main game.
Cool. Yeah. I always appreciate when demo saves carry over, and while it's not that with this demo specifically, I'm glad you do get something for dipping your toe in early. But Keith, you mentioned this demo not having like its sort of best foot forward, and that there are like a few rough edges that don't represent what the game is going to be at launch, probably. I feel like that is a lot of times when publishers will go like, well, just not release a demo, like it's just too risky. Because we, as people who are like quite tuned into this thing, we know normally when we go into a demo, like, okay, they can change things, or this isn't, it's like there's an assumption that like the week before release there's a lot of progress made in the game even. And so, we understand that, but I feel like casual players out there might not, and they might take it as, a representation of what the game is going to be as a whole. And I feel like, that's often the reason developers and publishers shy away from releasing demos at all. So I just appreciate that they're willing to, put themselves out there and let people try it,
Monster Hunter has, I think, ever since the 3DS, maybe even the PSP, has always put a demo out at least a month or two before release. So people can try out the new weapons, try out... because they always change the weapons in some way, and then try out fighting a new monster or the old monsters if they have it.
And a few base mechanic changes too.
Yeah, especially with this one, like the wire bugs letting you ninja through the skies and wall run and stuff like that.
Yeah. So, moving on then, I feel like this is a big discussion, right? Even though we've only, like, all of us have really only dipped a toe in it as far as I know. But we'll be talking about Playhouse's Game of the Year towards the end of this month at some point. And so I feel like this is a game that has to be talked about. And so let's start off with you this time, Tim. Tell me about what experiences you've had so far with Hades.
So I really enjoy it. It's been a long time since I played a roguelike. Like, I have Dead Cells on my Switch and I haven't touched it. So it's been a very long time since I've played a roguelike, and Hades is just solid. It's also my first Supergiant game.
Yeah.
So, like, I can see why everyone's loving it. We also have to remember that Supergiant had super good practice in terms of work situations, with having like mandatory vacation time and like making sure that people were having the opportunity to be out and be healthy.
Yeah.
But then as far as the game goes, like, it's not easy, but that's the point. You're supposed to just steadily over time continue to accumulate more and more resources as you die over and over and over again until you get to a point where you can just overcome whatever obstacle it is that's in your way. And it nails that sense of satisfaction of like, okay, we beat one, and now that you've beat that one, you move on, and you come back to that one that you beat at the beginning. So in this case, it'd be Megara for everyone. And you come back to Megara after you've beaten her and you've gotten onto the next area and everything, and you just start beating her consistently, and you forget that she was ever really a problem in the first place.
Yeah.
And
not
there's
a boss anymore.
Yeah, there's something so satisfying about that feeling of growth, though, which I think is why people love roguelikes and things like Hades, things like Dark Souls, things like Hollow Knight. There's just such a sense of satisfaction to triumph.
As you mentioned, Tim, it's not a hard, or it's not an easy game. And yeah, it's just this feeling of like, I even think about the premise of the game, right? The game's called Hades. It is hell. And like, even the characters around it and the NPCs are constantly reminding you, like, they're like sort of putting you down in a way. At least some of them are, where it's like, you're not going to make it. You're just, that's what many people have tried this and you're not going to do it. Like, you're climbing out of hell. And it's supposed to be this difficult, insanely difficult task that you're only going to beat through willpower.
Achilles is best, bro.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's true in real mythology as well, which I find cool. Again, me as a Greek myth nerd, like talking to all these characters is just so fun.
Yeah, and like from everything I can tell, like this is pretty accurate. Like they add a little bit of like spice in terms of personality, but all of these characters like are accurately referencing Greek mythology and the way they would have operated in Greek mythology.
Yeah, that's as well, like with myth and folklore, that's why I feel that that's always such a good storytelling tool to pull from, because it's hard to normally determine what accurate is, right? Like there's not a giant tome sitting somewhere where it's like, this is the official canon of all Greek mythology. It was mostly passed down through like oral tradition, and there is like wiggle room pretty much everywhere. And so like you can sort of, you know, mess around with things and still have it feel like true to the characters almost.
The official Greek mythology wiki.
Yeah, it's a fan wiki. No, that'd be fun. But Tim, you also mentioned this is your first Supergiant game, and that's why I feel this is getting brought up so much in like Game of the Year discussions as well, because I tried Bastion and I gotta be honest with you, I almost fell asleep playing that game. And I get why it's good and I get why people like it if you're into that genre of game. But it was just, I think the narrator helped with my sleepiness as well, because he's like very softly spoken and it's like, you're really like killing the hype for me right now, dude. But no, like with Hades, even though it's still a roguelike and even though it's still Supergiant, it just feels like this different beast. And that's been the story with so many other people as well.
It's got a heavy soundtrack too.
Oh, soundtrack's popping. It's just like, it's not a thing where, like when you're in the heat of battle and you're like at really hard sections of this game, it's almost like you're zoned out and you're not even really listening to the music, but there are moments in it where, and I was talking with Keith before this, where there's a character that sings that you meet often, and like the first time you find her and you just hear the soundtrack change and you hear her singing, that's such a video game moment. That's so like it's a moment that only video games can do in a way, I think. And I just sat listening to her for so long. It was so breathtaking.
From what you're describing, because I don't think I've gotten there yet, but from what you're describing, it's like in a similar vein to No Straight Roads, where it's just like No Straight Roads was one of those games where like really only a game could have done that idea of having a boss fight where you're actively switching genres over the course of like whoever is winning the fight.
Right. This wasn't even a fight though. It was just like a character you meet and she helps you out. But just like when you just find her singing and it just suddenly changes and it's like it went from very intense to very calm, and it's like it spurred me on then from that moment. I was like, yeah, let's keep going. I'm not defeated yet. Let's keep going. Oh, so good. And one of the things as well that you mentioned, which I think is super, super important to note, is the sort of dialogue around the development of this game and how it was made. When we bring up, you know, we often bring up these stories of crunch and, you know, Cyberpunk and Bethesda and Naughty Dog, and we like to scold developers when they do that. It makes sense then, on the other end of the scale, we should absolutely praise those and bring those up when we do hear stories like this, where, you know, crunch is going to be basically avert it or eliminate it in ways. I just like really hope in my heart that this doesn't become a story where like, thanks to the pressure of Hades, it's now this thing where like they have to crunch, or like they've just given up on that initiative because they're big now and there's more expectations on them. But I really like to praise it whenever I see good stuff like this. Keith, I want to know a bit about like your experience with Hades as well. How have you been going with it?
So I haven't even beaten the Hydra yet.
Right, I've
It keeps wrecking me pretty hard, but I'm enjoying it. And it's not often where I get encouraged to keep going from beating a boss after here and there. Like you said with Megra, you just get into that rhythm of beating her, and then the game throws in the wrench by throwing one of her other sisters into there. And then all of a sudden that boss fight changes. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh no.
And yes, again, you're so right with this. It's a dynamic game as well. Like, you are technically replaying the same swallows over and over again, but you're also not, because of how things are generated and how things change. Mm-hmm. And like, it does feel more like this constant stream of gameplay that was designed to be played in this way, and you're not just like going over the same ground. It all feels new whenever you're doing it. And like, again, even that's in terms of like Tim saying with Megra, where it's a new experience, where the boss fight at the start with Megra, where like it just seems impossible, and then afterwards you're just breezing through her. Those are two completely different gameplay experiences. Mm-hmm. And it's just one of the things where I love when developers are able to reuse stuff and get more out of it in that way. But I'm like you, I've only beaten Megra, and like I think I've gotten fairly close to the next boss after that. But it's been this thing where I know people like to play Hades in a way where it's like they pick up, go for a few runs, and then put it down again. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I could do that. I feel like that would piss me off too much. And so I'm waiting for a moment where like I've finished another game and I'm like, okay, Hades, I can commit to you now, and we're gonna get out of this place. But maybe that's the wrong way to go about it. Maybe I should be like picking up a little bit, just have a good run, and then leave it for a bit. I don't know.
By the way, one other thing. So like, speaking of interactions, and I think all of us have basically only just barely scratched the surface on this, but can we talk about the absolutely absurd amount of voice recording and writing that has gone into this game?
Mm-hmm. What's really impressive, and I remember talking about this during the Game Awards, where they nominated the voice of Zeus for the performance category in that one, and it's like, initially when you look at that, you're taken aback by it, but you're like, okay, Zeus was a good performance, but it's not like compared to like Ashley Johnson as Ellie and all these other things. Like it's a bit weird, but they had to nominate him for one character, but I'm pretty sure that guy plays tons of different characters in that game. And so like, sorry, did I say Zeus? I meant Hades. He plays Hades. And so like, that's, yeah, insane. Like, first of all, just this insane amount of voice acting in total, but the amount done by that one guy as well is pretty insane.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, when you're going over sort of the same ground in this sort of way and replaying stuff, you're gonna need, like, again, these things and these little moments of interaction where you see new stuff and you talk to people in new ways. It makes it feel real and tangible in that way. So I love that.
Yeah, at some point I'm gonna have to look it up after everyone's like really, really had their fill of the game. And I'm gonna have to see if there is like a record of how many lines have been recorded for this game.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Not to mention that these voice lines are also enhanced by the fact that you're giving like ambrosia to people and nectars and stuff like that to enhance your friendship with them, and getting new dialogue each time you do it, and further enhancing like each and after every run, somebody somewhere will have something new to say.
Yeah. I really feel like just maybe it's the thing with all Supergiant games, but I feel it most in Hades. Again, I didn't really get into Bastion, but this feels like they just found some good game feel, and they just built around that and kept building layers and layers on top of it. I feel like that's that's the impression I get about how they approach their game design. Because, like, again, even I've scratched the surface of like decorating your room with stuff, and like even that is like so fun to do. It's just like making a bomb ass room for this little kid. But like, yeah, just everything you do feels rewarding and fun, and like it always feels new and refreshing. And so this is a special game, and it's definitely worthy of all the praise it's getting. And it's hard to argue that this should be in every discussion for Game of the Year.
Also, I will say, like, I don't know if either of you have found these rooms, but there's rooms where two gods will appear.
Oh yeah, I found them.
No, never found that yet.
So then Keith knows how these work. So Finn, how they work is you go in there and both of the gods are there immediately.
Yeah.
And you pick up one of them. And this is what I love. They have, in true Greek mythology fashion, made the gods petty as shit.
Yeah.
Because if you pick, soon as you pick one, the other god is just like, what the fuck, bro?
Yeah.
And they start just raining hell on you.
Yeah.
And then if you pass their challenge, they're like, the one I had was Zeus. He's like, I just can't stay wrathful with you. Here, just take my blessing anyway.
I can just picture that so well, and I'm so excited to get to one of those parts in the game, because I can just imagine like Apollo and Aphrodite just like competing about like, if you pick Apollo, Aphrodite takes that as a personal attack against her beauty. Like, I'm not beautiful enough for you, whatever. Like,
yeah, well, and so the pair I got was Ares and Zeus.
Oh, damn. Alpha face off.
And so I picked Ares because Doom is such a great status effect in that game. Mm-hmm. And yet, like, Zeus gets pissed and literally, like, there are so many enemies that pop up, but more than the enemies, I was worried about the constant lightning bolts that were raining down.
That's so good. Because, like, again, as a mythology nerd, and specifically a Greek mythology enthusiast, like, I haven't obviously progressed a lot of the story of this game, but I was like, instantly, when you meet Zeus for the first time, you're like, the only reason you'd be taking part in this at all is if you find it like fun or interesting. And like, I totally get the vibe that like Zeus doesn't really care if I make out of hell. He just thinks it's fun to like piss off Hades for a little bit.
and that's the vibe you get. Like, you talk to any of them, talk to any of the higher gods. Like, Artemis is like, hey, I'm helping you get out. But like, you talk to like Athena or Zeus or Aphrodite or Dionysus, and they're like, it's very obvious that these are people that are just in it for like the spectator sport aspect of watching you die over and over and over again while pissing off your dad.
So good. I'm just, when I do sit down to play all this game, I'm gonna have a blast. I know I am.
Have you run into Sisyphus yet?
No.
Yeah, so Sisyphus is in there with his boulder.
Very cool.
And
don't spoil that interaction for me, because I really want to. Anything with Sisyphus is like a cool interaction, just because of the sort of irony of his story and how that can be used in storytelling.
The only thing I'll say is they're buds. Like, Sisyphus and Zagreus are buds.
I see that. Yeah, those are two people that it's like, yeah, he just like, I can imagine him being snarky, just like, hey, he's still pushing that boulder, huh? Good for you. All right.
And there's actually some secret bosses that are in the game too. Like, cool. One of my friends, if you don't mind, like a minor spoiler that's much later down the line as far as like multiple playthroughs in,
go ahead.
Charon.
Oh, the centaur?
No,
or am I thinking of something
like the ferryman.
Oh,
like the guy who sells you stuff. Like, you can end up fighting him as a secret boss.
Oh, so good.
And then you come back to Nyx, and Zagreus is like, man, like I don't think I should have fought Charon, and she's like, no, I think he enjoyed it because I don't think anyone else is stupid enough to fight him.
Yeah.
It's my favorite interaction.
And I think that, just sums it up. Like, we've all admitted that, like, we've only scratched the surface of this game, but we're having such a blast talking about it and these small little interactions, and there's so much we have yet to play. I imagine, if I'm really just like prioritizing it so I can get as much game time as possible before we sit down and talk about our game of the years. But I feel like the discussion on that game is going to keep going for a long while, even after that.
Yeah, because I mean, even like major streamers like Trihex, like Trihex is still playing the shit out of Hades.
Right. Yeah. Super, super good. And yeah, just a super feel-good story again from a developer perspective. But yeah, we will talk about that a little bit more when we do have our Game of the Years at the end of the month. Still planning out an exact date on that, but yeah, end of January is hopefully should give us enough time to play all the games we want to and come to a denomination, and we'll hopefully do a big old good stream for that. In the meantime, taking it back from 2020, Keith, let's talk about what sort of retro RPGs you've been playing.
So I've had a kick to go back to the 1990s, and I've been playing Lunar 2 Eternal Blue for one of my RPGs. It is as people like to say, a little niche and obscure RPG by Working Designs. It was originally on the Sega Saturn, and it was brought over to the PS1 by Working Designs, which was a little now defunct studio that brought niche RPGs over so people could experience them.
Yeah. And so what's the hook of this game? What called you to go back and play it?
The campy 90ness of it, like just things that like a little scene where the oblivious girl goes into the men's side of the hot springs, and your cat dragon companion says, boys shouldn't look at girls' no parts until they're married.
And so, like, again, like, PS1 90s RPGs are just like a blind spot for me in terms of gaming. And so, like, what value do you think this game, like, sort of has today, now that you're going back and taking another look at it?
Honestly, when you look at it and you go back to the 90s, you realize that this RPG was fairly simple. There wasn't too much to it. The reason why it lasted as long as it did for me is because it was hard as hell. Like, the basic enemies are easy peasy. I spam a magic attack. Oh, they're dead. But as soon as I get to a boss, I get my face pushed in.
And so, like, how long have you been sinking your teeth into it then so far?
So far, I'm probably... I'm not too far into Lunar 2 Eternal Blue because I didn't want to get burnt out on it, so I went to another obscure RPG.
Right.
From the 2000s on that. So I think I'm probably maybe at least a 10th to a quarter of the way in.
Uh-huh. Was this a game you played before, by the way?
I played it before, but never beat it.
Okay. I always love... It feels like guilty now because, like, my backlog is so long, but those moments where you do dip back into a game, maybe you didn't, like, give the love it deserved the first time around, it always feels super cozy and refreshing. And I just love that feeling in games like Revisiting the World, especially, like, there's so many games from, like, the PS1, early PS2 era where I was just like a dumb kid and I never beat them. Like, I never saw past the opening area. And so when you, like, find the content that the game was originally supposed to be giving you, you're just like, whoa, this is a whole new game.
Keith has been with me as I've been finding that out, because I've been grinding it for a long time, just because I was like, I'm going to destroy this game. I've had the Final Fantasy VIII remaster on my Switch for a while.
Huh.
And so Keith's been here earlier today, and then I was also like grinding it last night. As I've been figuring out like the way the game was intended to work.
Yeah.
And it's broken as shit. It's very much easy to see how like this game influenced the broken systems that are in some of the like non-mainline Kingdom Hearts games.
Uh-huh.
Because like, so for instance, like Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, everyone knows that is the game where like you spend more time like raising your quote unquote Pokemon than you do like fighting enemies, because raising the like spirits in that game gets you all of your abilities and stat boosts and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's the same kind of thing in Final Fantasy VIII. You're raising your summons levels instead of your player levels because the monsters and enemies all scale with your player levels. But if you level up your monsters, which modify your stats on like a percentage basis and give you new abilities and all of this kind of stuff, all of a sudden you become massively overpowered and you can go through the game at like sub level 20 and destroy everything.
Love that. Love preserving a game as it was intended, or well, I suppose not as it was intended, but as it was. Allowing those kind of sort of backdoor shady strategies.
Yeah, well, and what's even funnier about it is Keith and I talked about this. That game was made to screw over traditional RPG players.
Huh.
Because if you did a traditional grind and leveled up the normal way, all of the enemies scaled with you. So they just stayed the same difficulty and kicked your shit in later in the game.
Right. Yeah, it was sort of an anti-grind in that way. So yeah, that's cool. But no, just generally, like, this isn't really a revisiting games thing, but I've been playing through Valkyria Chronicles 4, getting that platinum, which I've now got, proud of it. And maybe it's a thing where I just don't play enough Japanese games. Maybe this is just like a Japanese developer thing. But there were, especially like in the post-game stuff, there were these like little moments where I felt like nostalgic for things I don't normally see in the games I play nowadays. And what I mean by that is like just little things like secret endings or extra content for the sake of content. You know, like platinum in that game was made far more easy purely due to the fact where there's this extra story you can do once you've beat the game and you've rolled credits. And in Valkyria Chronicles, there are these race of people known as Valkyria, and they are just like invincible, overpowered soldiers. And if you complete this little side story, you get to recruit them into your squad. So you have these just two invincible soldiers, and you go on such a power trip. And I feel like I never see like that in games anymore. Like with cheat codes, you'd be able to do that sort of thing where you become overpowered and you just explore the world and stuff. And just that sort of, that felt like older game design to me. Maybe it's not maybe it's just an Eastern thing, but it just felt very nostalgic to me. So Keith, was there like anything going back to these retro RPGs that you felt like you longed for or that felt nostalgic?
Truthfully, I've been getting it a lot with like Yakuza Like a Dragon, but a little bit more difficulty in battles.
Right.
Because a lot of games these days just seem to be, I don't know if it's because I'm more experienced or anything like that, but they just seem to be easier than normal. And sometimes I have to boost up the difficulty. That's not the case with every game, but I just really want to go back to where normal is actually a pretty hard difficulty. Not just feel like I'm playing on an easy mode labeled normal.
Yeah. Do you think that's a sort of consequence of gaming becoming this bigger space and more of a focus on like story, playing games for their story, and players not wanting to be bogged down in like combat that they might not be interested in, you know?
Honestly, I think that might be a thing like that, given the rise of gaming and everything. But I also feel that there's a phrase that goes along with it. If you don't like it, why are you here?
Right.
If you know you're not going to like an RPG, but you're wanting to get into one anyway, I would suggest that, you do a little bit more research instead of diving headfirst into an RPG that is supposed to be hard.
Yeah. And that's why I always feel that it's been handled mostly well by a lot of people. I feel like where, accessibility for these type of things and like letting players just play through the story is about options, right? It's not about just like making your game easier. It's about, like having options for people, having those harder difficulties for those who want it, having just like there are a lot of games you play nowadays that just says like difficulty as story. And like if you just want the story, I want to breeze through this combat, like you can totally do that. But maybe it does affect the sort of core player base of these games, and it's sort of skewed to the easier side, and maybe that affects how these developers start off designing their games, like designing them for the mass market sort of, and the people who would enjoy the harder difficulties or what was normal back in the day are maybe a smaller section of that, and they aren't as heavily prioritized anymore.
That's why I'm kind of looking forward to Bravely Default 2, because the demo is pretty hard. The level limit is 20 and in there, but that's neither here or there. But the fights are difficult. They make me think there's a certain strategy that gets you by. You just can't attack, heal through everything. You got to make sure you're managing properly.
Yeah. Go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna say a big part of this to me is like, and everyone here knows that I'm like a massive proponent of accessibility in games. But I also don't think that we should let the search for accessibility like weed out like games that rely on a high mechanical like skill ceiling, because there's definitely like a player base that needs that. But I think like if we're looking at like that perspective of like normal difficulty, I think normal difficulty in games should be a matter of like you're dying maybe once or twice for every like maybe 5 to 10 hours that you're playing the game. Like if you're on normal, like if you're not being careful, you should be punished for it on normal. Cause like even Kingdom Hearts, like the beginner difficulties are not difficult, but if you are rushing massively and like not equipping items and not using abilities and skills and all this kind of stuff, you end up dying a lot.
And you find that out more with the randomizer. I'm playing on beginner when we do our randomizer runs, and I still die here or there because I'm not using my skills properly. I'm not dodging at the right time. I'm not making use of the mechanics that the game gives me to do so.
Another example of this, I think, is good in the way they handle it. And I've been playing through, like I've been getting all the, objectives and collectibles, is of course Crash 4. And I feel like Crash's game design has always been, it's as hard as you want to make it. Maybe not so much with Crash 1, but definitely Crash 2 onward. I do feel like it only becomes a hard game when you're chasing after the 100% of collectibles. But if you just want to breeze through a level and get to the end, you can do that pretty easily. Like, it's not a lot of hard platforming challenges. And Crash 4, I think, refines that really well, where there is so much difficulty in that game as you're trying to chase everything, and there's so much to do, but also you can split it up into different parts, and you can try and, test yourself as far as you feel comfortable. Now, for me, who is someone who loves platinum games and like getting 100% and like ticking off boxes, I feel like that's a trap that I fall into, because like if you give me a box to tick, I'm gonna try and tick it. It doesn't matter if I don't really care about it. If there's a box to tick, I'll go for it anyway. And so like maybe there's people like me out there who just can't help but try and chase after everything. And I feel like those players know what they're getting into anyway. Like Valkyria Chronicles, again, another example where those are pretty, like, even on hard difficulty, I think those are super easy if you know what you're doing to just like breeze through those missions. It's a thing where you're trying to do it in as fast a time as possible to get the A rank. And so I feel like, again, it's this thing where if you're trying to rush through it, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna trip up, and you're gonna get caught. But yeah, I feel like, again, it's a different approach to game design where, in Crash 4 they removed lives if you want to. If you want to play the classic style with lives, you can. If you don't want to, deaths aren't a thing anymore. And it's about removing the areas of difficulty that don't matter as much. I feel like that's how you find a balance.
Yeah, because it's funny because when you think about it, that's Crash taking a page out of things like Super Meat Boy and Ghost Runner, where you don't have lives and you are just able to literally throw yourself at this wall over and over and over again until you get it. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Before we stray too far, Keith, as well, you mentioned another RPG you've been playing. Want to tell us a bit about that?
I've been playing Rogue Galaxy, which is a 2006 RPG done by Level 5. That one is a nice space theme RPG, which is pretty good. I like it.
I feel like I do recognize this title. I feel like someone might have recommended it to me at one point, but it's blank in my memory. I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah,
Rogue
definitely
Galaxy.
A name I've heard.
Yeah. Okay, I don't recognize this box art, but it does look, got a sort of space pirate ship on that. Love to see it. Love to see it. I have been watching someone play through Skies of Arcadia.
That's a
and
fun
that's sort
game.
of this pirate in the air sort of thing. Sky pirates is always a cool concept to me. And yeah, just the look of this game, seeing screenshots of it takes me back to that era. But yeah, how have you been finding that so far, dipping your toe back into that one?
So the normal random encounters in that are pretty spicy. Unless you grind out. This is a game that encourages grinding because enemies will drop rare items, and you use those rare items to learn abilities, like in a Final Fantasy X sphere grid kind of way.
Yeah.
And,
Go ahead.
And learning those abilities will help you clear out enemies faster. Like, I'm in an area where these giant tarantulas will kill me in 2 or 3 hits. So I just spam my abilities in order to do that and run back to the save point and heal.
I feel like this looks fairly like a traditional RPG. It looks like you have a party of 3 or 4 in there. Would you agree with that assessment that it's a traditional party-based RPG?
It's a party-based action RPG.
Oh, okay. But yeah, one thing always with that is even more so than, gameplay, I can get past bad gameplay or gameplay that doesn't sit with me if in these type of games the characters stand out to me. And so how would you say that the characters in this game are compared to, the sort of standard RPG fare?
I would say that they're pretty standard until you start leaning into the story a little bit more. I already know the story. I've already beaten this game a long time ago. But one of the characters is actively trying to betray you and set you up.
Right.
And he's a party member, but he's working for someone else. And in the middle of the main city, you're trying to renew your space pilot license so you can go to other planets properly. And he throws a grenade into there and gets you sent to jail.
Yeah.
So you have to break out of jail so he can further his plot.
Yeah, that does definitely sound cool. I guess what appeals to me about pirates, and especially sci-fi pirates, is the personalities of that type of character have to be bombastic and sort of take you with them on this journey. Do you feel like the game does that well?
Well, yeah, the person that's the evil party member, he's voiced by Steve Bloom.
Oh, so this game has voice acting.
Yes. So he has that. I'm the space pirate. I'm the big bad.
For those who aren't familiar, Steve Bloom is probably best known for being Spike Spiegel in Cowboy Bebop.
Nice.
And you could really hear it in his voice. It's like they they direct him just be Spike with a little bit more edge.
Yeah. So yeah, you said you've played through this game before. Is there anything that, like, now you're back into it, are you it's always a thing where you go back to this game and you want to remember how it feels necessarily, and not necessarily how it actually was. You want to experience how it felt at the time. Is there anything that, like, now you're going head first into it again, is sort of like, whoa, is there anything that sort of catches you off guard or takes you by surprise?
Controls are a bit clunky. The party doesn't automatically use skills. You have to tell them to. And they'll yell at you to be like, hey, I want to use this skill. And you have to press L1 or L2 to tell them to use it.
Yeah.
It's fairly, I don't want to say archaic, but it's clunky.
Right. So are there any other RPGs you want to mention, or anything you want to mention about this specific game?
Other than if people have a PS4 and they want to try it, it's on the PS4, PS2 store.
Cool. Love to see it. It's rare, so I'm glad I actually got there.
Mm-hmm.
Since we're on the topic of retro RPGs, I feel like I can bring this up now. So, has anyone here played and or finished Dragon Quest VIII?
I have.
I have not.
Not definitive edition. I played it back when it was the regular one.
I feel like
8 or I mean, either way,
Yeah.
I haven't, but I have 11, and I still have not touched the definitive one on Switch.
No, I was like excited to see Dragon Quest XI on Game Pass. I think I might get into that game after we've done Game of the Year stuff, but I can't commit to that. There's so many fucking games. But
If you start it, I'll start it.
nice. But one thing I want to mention though is Keith as well, and I think I've told this story before. I want you to sit down with me, and I want both of us I want to play Dragon Quest VIII with you, like with me in a voice channel and like watching me, because I think I've told this story before where I wasn't a big RPG kid growing up, but one Christmas my mom got me Dragon Quest VIII, and like I had never dipped into Dragon Quest before, but clearly like she's not like in tune to games at all, and so clearly she just went to the store one day and asked like what's the good shit, and the guy at the store handed her Dragon Quest VIII, and like I remember her handing it to me and me looking at it confused and looking up at her, and her face just dropped and she was like, I got the wrong thing, and I had to put on, that was the first time I remember having to put on like the Christmas, like, no, I really like your gift face, and I was like, no, I swear, it's probably good, I'll play it. And I remember trying to get into it, and it was such a different genre of game than I typically played at the time that I just fell off it hard. But as I grew up and I heard more about how special this game is, I really want to try it again. I want to undo the wrong. And then after I'm done, I want to tell my mum, like, hey, that game you got me like 10 years ago that you probably don't remember, it was good.
So I will say that back in the day, Dragon Quest VIII was the revival of Dragon Quest.
So it was, in fact, the good shit.
It was the good.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I just want to play through that game again. I feel like I'll need you by my side to, like, hold my hand as I do it.
I can't backseat game you in an RPG. That's the thing about RPGs, is the experience of itself and learning the whole entire the characters for your own self.
I guess it's just been so long now where I haven't had that experience for so long of just like a friend showing you a game, or like just a friend who's like played a game a bunch, like sitting by your side as you play it and experience it, and like talking to them about it. It's such a special thing in gaming that I want to feel that again.
Well, and
that's
so as I've been doing FF8, Keith has been there, like, and Keith does his best to like avoid spoiling anything for me, but like, and he's not like telling me how to build characters or how to use the mechanics, but he knows that like I have an objective, and he like keeps me on track towards that objective, like helping me keep track of part counts and enemies that I need to grind, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I've been sort of getting it playing through Fire Emblem when my friend like got me that recently, and like I've been telling him about my experiences, and that's sort of done it. But like I just need someone to like talk about it as it's happening and like witness these moments with me. I just love that
You
feeling.
gotta stop reminding me about these games I haven't finished.
Dude, Fire Emblem, he is obsessed with Three Houses, and he's never played a Fire Emblem before. And I think I've told this actually on a playdate as well.
Yeah.
But like, he bought me that game for Christmas so I would play it. And I was like, okay, I have to.
Have you been enjoying
I feel
it?
pressured now. Oh, so much, dude. That is a game where I can like pick up, do a little bit, and then put it back down because it operates on like a calendar, like week to week system.
Yeah, is it giving you like any sort of familiar vibes like that cross over with your Valkyria experiences?
Oh, tons. Yeah. Just like the bonds you build with your students, and like obviously the combat is different, but sort of inspired by each other in ways. I think obviously Valkyria Chronicles came later than the original Fire Emblems, but like, yeah, super good.
Yeah, well, this is a change too. Three Houses like very much changed how combat worked for Fire Emblem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. The thing as well is like it's dangerous when you're going from one game to another and they're both similar, is that you get this sort of whiplash when you notice anything different about the game that you loved the first time. And so like I wasn't sold initially on running around the monastery. It was like sort of an empty environment, I felt like, and I would be like, I wish this was just Valkyria Chronicles where I could just go through menus. I'd honestly prefer that at this point. Mm-hmm. But as I've discovered more and like figured out the monastery and really stretched my legs in there,
and
I'm
as
glad
more characters come in
exists.
and fill it out.
Yeah. I still think, and it might just be a limitation of the Switch, but like I don't want to just put it all down to that. But the environments themselves still do feel empty, like especially for a monastery. Like this game tries to tell you that people are living here and learning here, and it does feel like, well, where's all the stuff?
Yeah.
But you know, having like characters populate the world and just like going around and seeing where they are and what they're doing, like you just pop into one of your students and they're like gardening, like planting stuff, and it's like, oh hey professor, and it's like, hey, good on you.
And then there's Bernadette.
It's a cool place to be. Yeah.
Hey, Bernie's great.
I chose the house with Bernadette, so like I must protect her.
I think everyone that I know personally has chosen the, what is it? Black Eagles? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which again was a thing where I felt pressure because my friend chose the Blue Lions, and he really, for some reason that I'm sure will be explained to me in story, he hates the Black Eagles, and I was like, I had to tell him like the Blue Lions were a distant third in terms of me picking a house. Like Leicester Alliance and Black Eagles were like neck and neck for me, but I'm sorry, it wasn't Blue Lions. Maybe a little bit influenced by the fact that he chose them. I feel like I was a little bit contrarian there. But,
for me, it's also, for me, like, I just avoid anything that gives off a choir boy aesthetic.
I chose Black Eagles because I liked the way the main leader looked.
Right. I think that's the most chosen house by far. I think it's partly
because of Edelgard.
Yeah, because of Edelgard. For me, honestly, Edelgard wasn't the sell; it was Petra.
I know Petra's
she's
really
my
popular.
favorite character. Yeah, she's my favorite character by far. But yeah, I'm so excited to like that is a game I can just like feel cozy in, and I'm really enjoying it so far.
There's I can't remember his name, but there's one character in there. I love seeing his interactions just because like it's the Playboy character. He has orange hair. I can't remember his name now.
Sylvian.
Yeah. And I love watching his interactions because like it's very much instances of this dude thinks he's smooth as shit, but he's not.
So it's funny because I just recently like unlocked the recruit ability where you can go around and like if you've unlocked certain characteristics about your character, you can recruit people to your house. And so I was explaining this to my friend, and he was like, yeah, if you like go up to Sylvian, since I picked a female character, he'll just like, that's an automatic recruit. I don't have to do anything. If I just ask him, he'll join my side. And I distinctly remember in the game going up to him, seeing the recruit option, and just going, I'm not even going to press the button. Nah. It's just like, you're the totally wrong vibe for me. I'm not even going to try with you.
Oh, he's a tool.
Yeah.
100% he's a tool.
But I feel like I will circle back to him. I think I'm going to try and recruit as many people as possible, but yeah.
So
Because there's no downside.
You like that recruiting aspect, right?
Uh-huh.
And building relationships with your team and such like that?
Oh yeah, I've just like started to scratch the surface of this the support stories where like if your characters are like next to each other on the battlefield and interact a lot, they'll build like bonds, and once you've reached a certain bond level, you basically watch this little cutscene play out between the two of them, and then they unlock a support level which gives them benefits on the battlefield if they're next to each other again. And so I've started watching those, and those sort of remind me of the squad stories in Valkyria Chronicles 4, which was my favorite part of that game. And it's just like cool seeing all these like little students bond with each other. It's sick.
If you like that, you might like the Suikoden series. There's like 101 characters to recruit, stuff like that, and they all have like their individual stories. It's an RPG, but
yeah. No, I'm
really
familiar with Suikoden, and even just the art style sort of gives off a certain vibe to me. So yeah, maybe it it's like Pokemon for people.
Yeah, well, and you've probably heard it a million times at this point, Finn, but there's this little game some people might not have heard of called Persona 5.
All right, settle down. It's too many long games to play. I still haven't touched Valhalla. It's sitting there on my shelf. Right, okay, we're moving on.
Yep.
okay.
Tim, tell me about a game that doesn't have any required playtime to unlock all the goodness. Tell me about your experiences with 3 different Tetris games.
Okay, so 1, Tetris AI is stupid difficult.
Yeah,
Those are monsters.
I haven't touched Puyo Puyo Tetris yet, but like, yeah, I get what you mean.
Yeah, we still got to play, but yeah. Also, Tetris AIs don't know how to play Puyo Puyo, and it's hilarious.
I don't know how to play Puyo Puyo.
But I beat Tetris Effect on normal. And let me ask you, have you ever played a Tetris game on keyboard?
Dear God, Tim, tell me no. Tell me you haven't done that.
I had to.
Oh, no.
I had to play through the
entire
campaign of Tetris Effect on keyboard.
Walk me through that experience. Because that sounds like hell.
Kind of hell. Especially for my right hand, because I'm used to just doing a mouse with my right hand.
Yeah.
Your right hand controls all of the like lateral movement of the blocks and whatnot. So like quick place, fast drop, like movement left or right, like all of that, and then your left hand takes care of rotation and storage. I think it's ZX and C for like left, right, and storage, and then arrow keys for movement. And I got so much fatigue on my right hand because it was not used to doing like that much work.
No,
it's
not.
more used to moving a mouse and clicking.
Yeah.
And
oh my God.
Just like
this, I'm trying to figure out a game where it's like I could do the equivalent thing. It's like saying it's like me coming up to you and saying like I played Kingdom Hearts, but it was on the TV the size of a postage stamp. Like I don't know. No, so that's the only. You know what a good comparison would probably be? Okay.
Playing FromSoft games, so like Dark Souls or whatnot, on a mouse and keyboard.
Right.
That is not an experience that I would wish upon anybody. It's doable, but I do not think that's the way to play those games.
Yeah. And so I'm like so shocked to like hearing you say that, but also gotta commend you for like making the whole way through the campaign doing that.
To be fair, it was only on normal too.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the level, but there's the level where the blocks are all like flames.
Yeah.
That was difficult. Yeah, that was rough.
Difficult. Gets intense.
Yeah, no, that was the level where I was like, my forearm hurts. I can't play anymore for right now.
Uh-huh.
But moving from that to then playing Puyo Puyo Tetris on the Pro controller, then you come into like all of the problems that the Pro controller has with playing games that require that much accuracy with the D-pad.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many people know this, but the Switch Pro controller's D-pad is terrible if you're looking for accuracy.
Yep.
Because it's very squishy.
Noticed.
And it will hit multiple inputs even when you don't want it to.
More like an analog stick that has the corners cut off.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And so then you come to know God. And by God, I mean the Joy-Cons and the Joy-Con D-pad.
And yeah, it really is.
I was going to say, you agree with me on this. I know that the Joy-Con is hands down the best way to maneuver Tetris blocks.
Yeah, just having 4 separate buttons, life changer.
And so then you go into Tetris Effect, Tetris 99.
Yeah.
And the furthest I've gotten on that game is 3rd place.
Yeah. I'm similar. I haven't won yet. Like, it's just a different kind of Tetris, really.
Yeah, and I've it's funny because you start playing Tetris and then you start finding out about like the world of Tetris that people don't normally see. And you start finding out about like build patterns and like infinite build patterns. And then you go into a competitive game and you try infinite build patterns and you're like, oh shit, this doesn't work against people.
No.
But then past that, there's also like you also try the infinite build patterns in like a normal game, like an endurance game, and you realize, oh shit, this doesn't work unless you know how to like pre-move blocks because of how fast the game gets.
Yeah. It's such it's such a different form of Tetris where me playing it for so long, it's like you're playing for score. You're playing for, you know, how high you can build and then how you can knock that down easily and just doing that pattern over and over again. And even with like one-on-one Tetris battles, like score still comes into it a lot more than, you know, just like quickly clear lines as fast as possible. Tetris 99, you're playing for survival. It's ruthless. It's like you cannot afford to like be confident in any way.
Yeah, you're used to doing Tetris and going for Tetrises in Tetris when you play it normally. Yeah. But then you go into 99 and it might take a while for it to click that like you need to just clear lines. That is your only objective. Do not go for score. Do not go for Tetrises. You could have like 10 Tetrises while some other dude in the group has like 100 lines cleared already and he's just destroyed you.
Yeah. But at the same time, with how brutal it is, Tetris 99 is the only, like, I feel like Tetris is the game where if like the devil or the Grim Reaper comes up to me, it's like play a game to save your life. Tetris is what I'm picking. And I feel like those are the hypest moments for me in games where, you know, I've been with friends and they've watched me play it and like I've escaped death like 15 times and it's just such a rush. Oh my god.
Yeah. Well, and there's also another thing that's great about Tetris, and it's unfortunately something you can only experience once unless you experience it happening to other people, which you and I have seen a video between Rob Scallon and the now unfortunately passed Jonas Neubauer, I think is how you say it.
Yeah, I think that's, I have no idea, but like, that's how I pronounced it.
So he passed away, I believe, today, right? The day we're recording this?
We mentioned it on Playhouse Live. I think he actually passed away yesterday, although that might just be my weird day meshing.
So,
but
I think it was yesterday, now that I'm looking at the tweet again. But, you know, Jonas is sitting there teaching Rob, who's a musician, about playing like classic NES Tetris. and there's the moment when it clicks.
Yeah.
And that moment is like so thrilling, and it puts you just onto a mode of like, all right, Tetris. And like you start looking into more about Tetris, and then you find out that like there's a name for all of this, and it's called the Tetris effect. Funny how they named a game after it.
Yeah, so good.
Like it's amazing to see how influential such a simple game has become.
Yeah. Yeah, just a game you can play forever. Like, and never get bored of it. At least me.
And anyone can play it too. Like, one of the biggest things I remember about one of my grandmas was that, like, I remember she had an old school Game Boy with Tetris on it.
Yeah. It's just so easy to understand. Just squares, man. Just line up the squares.
And it's got the same, like, infinite ability to come back to it, just like a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah.
Like you can just
Rubik's Cube is a great,
You just like it's simple to understand, but extremely hard to like execute at a high level.
Yeah.
And
ceiling's almost infinite.
Yeah, but then like as soon as it clicks, you're in and you're potentially not getting back out. Like you might have long break periods, but you'll always come back. At some point, you'll always be like, I could go for some Tetris.
So I want to ask you, since you've been playing through Tetris Effect, I'm not sure how much you've done outside of the campaign. Have you played any of the sort of modes that they offer?
Marathon mode, is that it? Where they want you to clear like a certain number of lines?
So marathon is like just keep going until you're done, like sort of the standard Tetris. I think sprint is like clear as many lines as fast as possible, or there's different sort of versions of that. Chill marathon is like there's no death.
So I've tried doing like the whatever the mode is where they just want you to clear a number of lines, like not in a specific time period or anything. And I have not been able to do the first stage because it's like 150 lines.
Yeah. So it's interesting for me because I always, before Tetris Effect, sort of before Tetris Effect connected, I think was the big thing, where I would say to anyone who wants to get better at like Tetris 99, I would say go back and play Game Boy versions or NES versions of the game, because it removes some of the quality of life things like the hold and the sort of not set order of pieces, but like sort of less random. Like in old Tetris, it's like truly random order. Like you could get 15 blocks in a row and that's just how your day is. But like it just gives you this like sort of trial by fire and a sort of new perspective. And I think it makes you better at the game. What I love about Tetris Effect is it just expands on that. It forces you in those other modes to play Tetris in weird ways that shouldn't make sense if you're just playing normal Tetris, but forces you to think differently about it and change the way you play, which I think makes you an overall better player. And that's why I love that version of Tetris specifically, because it lets you like train yourself in all these weird, wacky ways. So cool.
Funny thing, and I'm fully willing to somewhat embarrass myself with this one, but when I first started playing Tetris Effect, so we know the UI for that game is super bare bones.
Yeah.
And so there's no hold square. And so you're playing on keyboard where you have all of these keys and you have no idea what any of them are bound to. And you just like go in. So I was like, I didn't go into campaign initially. I went into that 150 line clear just right from the get-go. And so I was playing, and I even said to one of my friends, like, wait, I don't think Tetris Effect has a hold, because I didn't see it on the UI. So I got to like around a 90, I think, clear, a 90 line clear.
Yeah.
Just without, like, I just ground and like, I was just grinding until I got to like a 90-ish clear without hold.
Yeah. And I bet once you like found out that hold, though, you felt like you could do anything. Like you felt so powerful.
No, because I can attest to the fact that holding makes you a worse player, because you get comfortable with the crutch that is holding.
I can see that. It's good for, again, when you're trying to like max out like Tetris and combos and such, but like it is a crutch you lean on for sure when you're like in a tough moment. It's like, oh, just line.
Yeah, and sometimes
line whatever I want.
And sometimes like you don't immediately see the thing that you were looking for, so you hold, and then you realize after the fact that like, wait, no shit, I shouldn't have held that, and I should have just placed that block somewhere.
Yeah.
It's a man. Tetris is a game, dude. It is a game.
It's you could spend a lifetime just playing that and just have that be your video game experience. I attest to that so much. But yeah, like you've been dipping your toe into lots of different versions. It's cool, like comparing them and how they, affect the ways you play. So love talking about Tetris. Anytime I'll do it.
Yeah,
anytime I'll talk
and I
about
will
it.
say, like, just for the frame of reference, like Puyo Puyo is like weird in a way that it is the same and a completely different beast at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like Puyo Puyo is a like simpler building model, because you're not like trying to necessarily make you're not trying to like line things up in a straight line across the bottom of the screen. You're just trying to get 4 pieces of the same color to touch across any direction except for diagonally.
Uh-huh.
And where Puyo Puyo gets complex and gets kind of big brain is there's the concept of chains. So like Tetris, you can't chain from line breaks. Like blocks don't follow physics and gravity.
Yeah.
Puyos do.
Uh-huh.
And so let's say you have like 3 green Puyos in like this bottom stack, and then across on top of them you have 3 blue Puyos going horizontally. You then drop a blue Puyo onto that group of green Puyos, and that blue Puyo has a green Puyo on top of it.
Yeah.
And the blue Puyos disappear, the green one drops onto the other green ones, completes that, and you get a chain. And so you can like create these weird stacks that you then drop one piece and you just like start clearing a ton of Puyos off the screen because they're all dropping into different chain formations. And it just gets really complicated.
And that's what, when I always watch Puyo Puyo, that always breaks my mind. And I think it's that same thing where in chess I can't plan ahead. In Puyo Puyo, I would like never be able to plan ahead. Like even like just as you talked about the interaction where it's like the single green thing falling down to meet the other green things. It's like I just, that breaks my brain.
Yeah. It's like, wait, physics exists?
Yeah, no, bring physics into it, I'm out. All right. I'll go play Minecraft and Tetris. Those are the only 2 games.
Yeah, and man, you bring up chess. That's going to have to be like a whole podcast unto itself. Like, I love how much chess has blown up.
You want to do a chess cast? We can do a chess cast at some point. Yeah.
I would be down to just have like some sort of chess thing within Playhouse, because like I'm not going to say I'm great at chess, but I do enjoy it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I enjoy it even though I suck at it, which is
there's
fun in some way.
Just a quick aside with the chess stuff that I think people need to see. There's a clip of Charlie Moist Critical playing against XQC. Right. And he beats XQC in 6 moves.
Yeah,
like,
I do remember seeing that clip.
Yeah, with the 2 GMs watching, and they're just like, no.
Yeah.
It's
very funny.
It's a great clip, and to anyone who hasn't seen it, I recommend watching it, because like it might take a minute to like understand how it all happens, but like just take the minute to like kind of grasp what's going on there, and it's just a fun moment.
That is like equivalent space in my brain to the dream where you're not wearing any clothes and you're on a stage. Like the dream where you're playing chess to a live audience and you lose in like 5 turns. Nightmare.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll move on from that. We'll do a chess cast at some point, I'm sure. But in the meantime, I want to talk very quickly, Tim and Keith as well, about Sephiroth in Smash Bros.
So,
yeah, go into it. Dive into it.
I'll let Keith start because he'll gush on more of like the side of the love that's been shown the character. So I'll let that get out of the way first.
All right.
I really can't say too much to Sector. Like, there's so many references to his abilities, and from Final Fantasy VII, and they really did a lot of love to him, especially with making him more in the Advent Children line than base.
What was it like hearing One Winged Angel in the game for the first time?
Which version?
Pretty good. Yeah, which version?
Is there many versions of that?
There's two. So there's the version from like Final Fantasy VII proper, and then there's the version from the Advent Children movie.
Right, of course. I always forget about that movie, even though it's like a big deal. But yeah, it's just the thing where I remember people talking about with Cloud being in Smash so long and One Winged Angel not being like a track in the game, and this being like a big deal for that reason. Among others.
Yeah, so they added like 3 songs from Advent Children, and then on top of that, they added in like a few of the original soundtracks, and then a few remixes of original soundtracks, and they're all great. It's great to hear them.
Yeah. And so just generally like look, feel, vibes, would you say like you'd give the thumbs up to Sephiroth?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Do you I forget. Did you watch the direct, Finn?
I didn't watch the direct, no.
So do you know how they handled the release of him?
No.
So Sephiroth has often been a secret boss in Square Enix games. Like Kingdom Hearts 1 and 2, he was a secret boss. He was like a secret boss in Yokai Watch.
Okay.
So
cool.
Like very much this character that has this legacy of like being extremely powerful and being extremely powerful even in games that aren't his. And so they they're wrapping up the direct, and they say he comes out on like the following Tuesday or whatever. And then they say, but we've added in this new game mode, and the game mode is a Sephiroth boss fight. And you can pick easy, normal, or hard, or it's normal, hard, or very hard. It's 3 difficulties.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing is, if you can beat him before the release date, you unlock him early as a playable character.
So sick. Sakurai is too good to us.
Yeah.
Like, we don't deserve him.
And it's like, I think that's the epitome of showing the love for that character and his legacy. The fact that they even referenced his legacy as a secret boss in other video games.
Yeah. It's just, the way they handle these things, man. Like, I'm pretty sure when Crash gets announced for that game, you're going to see Sakurai in the Crash suit. That's how, like, invested he is in, like, making these whole things feel like big events.
Yeah, I really wonder like what they're going to do for that, because they also made like, so every character has, their own unique campaign that's a reference to that character and their history, just no matter what character that you pick in Smash Bros.
Challenge mode, or what was it called? I play through it a lot. I forget what it's called.
I think it's just the campaign. Or now I can't
Classic
remember.
mode.
Classic mode, yeah.
Classic mode. That was it. Yeah.
So Sephiroth is like the biggest, baddest boss of them all, right? So instead of having Sephiroth fight normal Smash characters, they just throw all of the bosses at you from the story mode.
Very cool. Like he's the boss among bosses.
Yeah.
Cool.
And but then like gameplay wise, he's definitely interesting. If you are a casual player who like hates the idea of people ledge guarding, you're gonna absolutely hate Sephiroth.
Okay.
Because he has multiple moves that are basically just designed to stab down off of the stage.
Oh, that sounds rough.
Like if you're on like a stage like Battlefield, Sephiroth can like stay on stage, and so like his down air. Like everyone who plays Smash knows how Link's down air works, where like he just like falls with the sword pointed down and slams into the ground.
Yeah, it's like a pointy butt. It's like you have a pointy butt.
Right. So Sephiroth though has a really long sword. So if you do that at the edge of the stage, it just like pokes out through the bottom of the stage.
Yeah.
And so if you're trying to jump up from underneath the stage, you're just going to get hit by that sword coming out the bottom.
So that's a problem for me now because I almost exclusively play Battlefield stages.
But then his like down smash too is just like a stab at the ground. So if you do that near the edge of the stage, you're basically just stabbing at the ledge.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, it also breaks shields. So
Oh, great. Wonderful.
the main aspect of his gameplay, like tip for people that might be having difficulty playing against him, he has a really long range. But the trade-off for that is that his moves are slow.
Mm-hmm.
So in a lot of instances, you will have a decent opportunity to just like run up and smack him or grab him if you can get him to swing at you and miss.
I feel like that's similar to Byleth in a ways.
Yeah, especially Byleth's like down B attack with the axe.
Yeah,
where like
for sure.
That and like Ganondorf's Warlock Punch, as long as you get out of the way of those, then yeah, you're good to just walk in there and beat the crap out of him.
Yeah.
One of the things that makes Sephiroth really dangerous though is everyone. So at this point, everyone's used to counters in Smash. Like half of the cast has them.
Mm-hmm.
Sephiroth doesn't need you to hit him. So he hits the counter button, and whether you hit him or not, he'll do like a tiny attack after the fact.
And is it like more so than if it actually does hit you?
No. You definitely get punished more for hitting it. But it makes it like really good for like if he wants to jump off stage and just hit the counter button, because either way, if you go into him, you're going to get hit.
Yeah. Sounds rough.
Yeah. But his other abilities are actually pretty like reasonably balanced and a little hard to use. Because the fireball attack that we saw in his like initial reveal, that has 3 stages to it. And the first stage is like very short charge, very long range, but a weaker projectile. And then you have medium charge, which is medium range, and it does a decent amount of damage. And then you have the one that they actually showed in the trailer, which is a very long charge time, an extremely short range, but it's like dropping a nuke in front of him.
Right.
And so if someone just like jumps back on stage as you're charging that right at the ledge, they're dead.
Yeah. Confirmed kill.
Yeah. And if Sephiroth drops that into a like reflector like Fox has, he's dead. Like 100% dead. Like even at 0%, he's dead.
Mm-hmm. Sephiroth is pretty squishy.
Yeah, he's very light. Hard to kill though if you do too much damage to him, because then he gets like the wing that we saw in the trailer, and that gives him like an extra jump. It gives him more damage. It gives him more range on his up B, like all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
And then the little like shadow orb things that we saw too. I've seen people doing stuff now, especially in like people found a tag team tech where if you have Sephiroth and it's any characters that do it, I think like specific examples are Kirby and Meta Knight, where like they both have throws where they fly up really high in the air and then slam the person back down. So if you throw Sephiroth's purple orbs on people, because they have like a timed release function, so after a certain amount of time they'll just immediately attack the character. So if you are on a team with a Kirby or Meta Knight and you hit someone with those orbs and then the Kirby or Meta Knight runs up, grabs them, and does that throw, they'll fly up towards the top of the screen, and if you time it right, the orbs will hit the person and just kill them off the top immediately.
Wild. Yeah.
So
love when people like crack codes like that. Yeah, just find these nonsense.
Yeah, he's going to be very interesting to watch. There was even like a competitive Smash Invitational that they did where it was just everyone was playing Sephiroth, and I watched the grand finals of that. It was fun to watch.
How good and or cursed is Kirby Sephiroth? Like, not the tag team, but like the I've consumed Sephiroth mode of Kirby.
He gets a cosplay wig.
Yeah.
That's, yeah.
But the move he gets is that charged fireball.
Cool.
So Kirby has the option to just drop a nuke in front of him.
It just seems wrong. Kirby Sephiroth just seems like a wrong thing to do to a video game character that's like squishy and lovable and cuddly. Just like turning him into Sephiroth is like, feels morally wrong.
And no, what's more cursed is Square Kirby.
I
love Square Kirby. Love Square Kirby, dude. So good. And so like that sort of ties into sort of, you know, my summary point where it's like, despite what you think of like individual characters or who shouldn't be in or out of the roster, I feel like even more so this new season of Smash Bros. Characters has been just so on point in terms of how they're implement it. Like Min, great. Steve, great. Sephiroth, oof.
It's funny though, because I feel pretty genuinely like Sephiroth has been like the biggest, like he's gotten the biggest response out of the wider community. Yeah. Because I feel like there's a lot of people that were like, Min, it's just another Nintendo character. And then they see Steve and they're like, but nobody likes Minecraft anymore. And then they see Sephiroth and they're like, what? Yeah.
I was talking with John on Playhouse Live earlier, and we were talking about the SNK announcements recently. And into Samurai Showdown, they have a similar like season pass adding fighters every so often. And they added this fighter from another game called The Last Blade 2. And the guy describing it was like, yeah, you know, we've been doing a lot of crossover stuff recently and adding like in other IPs to the game. And we really just wanted to, you know, take a chance to bring in one of our own IPs for a change. And I feel like that's how Sakurai is sometimes. Just like, okay, I gave you Sephiroth, I gave you Banjo, just let me have, you know, Byleth and Min.
Let me have one more Fire Emblem character.
yeah, just let me have these, all right? I do. Come on. But no, I always love to see a new Smash character reveal, and I feel like this one, like most of them, was handled really well. Alright, so this next segment is where we play a little game to sort of break up the conversation a little bit. This one's pretty simple. I'm going to tell you about some video game marketing campaign promotional stunts. And quite simply, you will have to tell me if these are real or ones that I've made up. So yeah, I'll ask each of you and I'll be keeping score. So, here is the first one. During the release day of Skyrim, Bethesda offered any new parents who named their child Dovahkiin a Steam key, which would give them every Bethesda game, past, present, and future, for life. Is this real or fake?
I'm gonna say that's fake.
Okay.
I'm going to say that's real.
Keith's correct. That is a real thing.
Oh my god.
One couple rose to the challenge. Eric and Megan had little baby Dovahkiin Kellermeyer. Yeah, that was a real thing. I wonder, is that like an automatic Steam key thing, or do they just have to keep sending them like, oh, Starfield's out now, let's give you the key for that? Like, do they have to keep in touch with the Kellermeyers? See how Dovahkiin's doing?
Make sure Dovahkiin's
I hope
getting
they
his
legally
education.
changed that child's name.
Yeah. Okay, so the next one. Atari opened their own theme park to celebrate the release of Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. The park also featured real-life versions of some player-made rides that are iconic among the community.
I'm gonna say fake on that one, just because I feel like I would have actually heard about that, because that's like quite a massive undertaking. Like not as big as like Nintendo World or something, but that's a massive undertaking. And I used to really love Roller Coaster Tycoon.
You know how many theme parks are out there? I suppose. Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna say fake as well.
You are both correct. Made that one up. Yeah, the making a whole theme park is kind of out there, but yeah, there are some out there ones on this list that might through.
Like naming your kid Dovahkiin.
Instantly got Tim. I think that was just a moral stance. Like, this can't be real because I say so.
I mean, like, this can't be real because you shouldn't do that to a kid.
Yeah, morally wrong. Maybe he loves it. Maybe he's like totally like the cool kid among his friend group now because he's Dovahkiin.
I would just say, hey, I'm Ken.
Don't ask what it's short for. No. On the day of release of Burnout 2, Acclaim offered to pay the fine for anyone who received a speeding ticket in the UK.
I'm going to say real.
I'm going to say yes. Yeah, I'm going to say real.
That is real. Following a negative reaction from the UK government, the plan was cancelled. For obvious reasons.
Yeah.
Worth noting that Acclaim is like a notorious doer of these things, or at least was back in the day. They also tried the name your baby stuff with Turok. They were offering like free stuff to anyone who named their baby Turok. Although they had the disclaimer where it's like, you only have to legally change it for 1 year and you can name whatever they want.
Okay.
I don't feel like that makes it any better, but it's, yeah, whatever. At least they had a time limit on it.
Yeah, like at least they gave them an out.
Yeah. During the release weekend of the Jackbox Party Pack 5, the developer set up a game of Quiplash 2 on a giant screen above Times Square that onlookers can join with their phones.
I'm going to say fake. I feel like we would have heard about that.
I'm going to say real.
That is fake.
Oh.
Yeah. I feel like that's a missed opportunity, though. That would be hype as shit. The only thing is, like, obviously there would be expletives up there, but like...
Yeah, tons.
Okay. This next one. To promote Resident Evil 6 being released, Capcom turned a popular meat market into a Resident Evil-themed human butchery shop named Wesker & Son. Resident Evil fans in here? I'm gonna
say real. I'm gonna say real because there's a detail involved in that I don't think you know about. So I'm gonna say real.
Did I make research to make up these things? Who knows?
I'm gonna have to say fake.
That is real. Tim caught me out.
Because
the name Wesker?
Well, so Wesker died in Resident Evil 5. Right. But one of the main characters of Resident Evil 6 is his son.
Ah, okay.
So, I had a feeling you wouldn't know that detail, so you couldn't make something like that up,
right?
Without knowing that history. And so the fact that detail was there, that sold it.
A statement from Capcom reads, once at the Wesker & Son Butchery, members of the public will be invited to sample and purchase a dizzying array of edible human limbs, including hands, feet, and a human head, which will be available to buy directly from the shop. As well as these specifically created products, gamers will be able to buy peppered human and lemon sausages and Javo-caught human thigh sticks, along with some specially made pots of red herb and green herb. All proceeds from the sale of the meat will be donated to the Limbless Association, which provides information and support to the limb loss community. In addition to the Pop-Bop Human Butchery and Morgue, Resident Evil fans will be invited to attend 2 days of lectures at St. Bartholomew's Hospital Pathology Museum, which has been designed to explore some of the themes of the game and their link to real life. So not only like a promotional stunt, but also like a cool way to
raise awareness.
Yeah, links it into the game with Juavo.
Yeah.
Links it into pandemic information, which would have been useful. But Yeah, the other reason is Japan loves this shit. They eat it up.
Here's the thing. This was in London.
That's interesting. Because, I know that Square has, like, their Square Enix Cafe where they regularly have, like, really interesting things that temporarily, like, get put up on the menu and whatnot.
A surprising amount of these, like, real entries took place in the UK, and more specifically, a lot of them took place in London. I don't know if there's some sort of, like, lenient UK law when it comes to promotional stunts, but it was just weird. A lot of these were in the UK.
I think UK is the place where a dude ate, like, a human tonsil or whatever, because... Okay, this is a little morbid. Cannibalism is not technically illegal anywhere.
Really?
It's just all the methods of acquiring it.
Yeah, as long as the person was killed of natural or died of natural causes. That's wild. So yeah, that human meat could be real human meat. They could do it. It's legal. All right, next one. THQ placed 100 copies of Red Faction Gorilla into a car parked on a busy street and encouraged fans to use a sledgehammer that they had deposited nearby and break open the car to retrieve the free copies.
I'll say real.
I'm going to say fake, because I feel like that would lead to too much, like, police suspicion.
The hit is real. Definitely did lead to some police suspicion. I think I have a quote here I can pull up. Yeah. So PR manager Simon Watts explained the ruse. Because Red Faction Gorilla features the world's most realistic destruction engine, we thought that it would make for an interesting experiment to find out how many people going about their everyday business would stop in a busy city street to work out some stress by smashing their way into a car to earn a copy of our brand new game. No reports of anyone smashing the wrong car. I feel like that would have been a given. Mm-hmm. But, like, no commotion around that one. All right. Next one. The demo disc for the PC version of Enter the Matrix contained a mild computer virus that would cause odd behavior for keyboard input. Instead of what the user was trying to type, the phrase "free your mind" would occasionally appear in its place.
I'm gonna say real, just because.
I'm gonna say fake.
Tim's right. That's fake. I made that up.
And the reason that was hard for me is because, like, that goes against, like, that's a lawsuit waiting to happen, and that goes against like all common sense and internet etiquette. But at the same time, that game would have come out in an era where, like, those principles had not been as firmly established.
Yeah.
So they could have gotten away with it, but it still would have led to a lawsuit.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of lawsuits, next one. Watch Dogs caused a bomb scare as a mysterious black box was sent to an office of a news station.
Real. I think I've heard that one. It sounds familiar.
I'm going to say fake, because I paid a lot of attention to Watch Dogs 1 and its launch, so I don't think I remember hearing anything about that.
Didn't pay enough attention. That was real. Keith remembered.
Wow.
Yeah. I have another, like, snippet of an article here somewhere. Here we are. Yeah, so there was, like, this black safe, and so when the staff punched the pin code into the safe started beeping. Growing slightly concerned it might be an explosive device, they started calling other newsrooms to see if they had gotten a similar package. This is a quote. "This is definitely the other side of the line in terms of what is safe for a PR company to send anonymously to a newsroom. The thing was black, heavy, and slightly creepy. We did check with other newsrooms to see if they had received a similar package, as we thought it might be a PR stunt, but no one else had. We weren't as panicked at any point, but given that there was no note explaining what it was, we had to take sensible precautions. This meant evacuating some staff and calling a bomb squad, who opened the safe. You can see it pried open in the image, to find a copy of Watch Dogs, a baseball cap, and a beanie." So funny being that bomb squad. Like, what the heck? It's just like, because I remember there was hype for that game, so do you think one of those bomb squad was like, we got to take this in for evidence, and he just brings it home and plays it.
And so I forget, was this in the UK as well?
This was Australia.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this is the final one. You guys are actually tied right now. This is good. This works out well. This final one. EA launched several copies of Mass Effect 3 into space in the lead up to its release. Gamers will be able to retrieve the special copies known as the Mass Effect 3 Space Edition once they had safely landed back on Earth.
Fake.
Oh, God.
Even for EA, that's too much money.
I'm going to say real, because EA's stupid.
Keith has taken the victory at the last stretch. That is real.
Who got on board with that project?
So they attached these care packages to these 2 weather balloons. One of them landed like where they thought it would, right? They had a Twitter account like constantly with GPS location, like here's where it is, go find it. The other one like went rogue and like went too far south and ended up in this like farm somewhere. And they had to tweet out the following. Ground crew attacked by cows. Remember, this balloon doesn't have copies. We have to mail them to you. Cows did not eat copies. So funny. Just like these gamers fighting off cows that they want the Mass Effect through.
Man, I didn't know that Mass Effect had a secret cow level.
Yeah. Oh, wild. Yeah. The lengths that these people will go to promote their game as well. A lot of these I noticed as well were like mid-2000s, like PS2 era. So maybe it's just like an edgy sort of that era thing. I don't really see it happen as much anymore. I feel like everyone's sort of in tune to the internet a bit more, and you're able to just like send packages to influencers and that'll do the same job, you know?
The funny thing for me is like, so I didn't even think about them using balloons to do it. Because I was like...
You were like, strap it to a rocket and watch it fly.
Yeah, I was like, what company would have like financially and like in terms of resources backed this? Because like Elon Musk hadn't hit it yet. So who would have been stupid enough to do that?
I know that, and maybe this is a SpaceX thing, but I feel like this predates it. I know that some space flights have like this little box where people who work on the crew can like put a small thing in the box that they want to send to space. Like whether it's like a photo of their family or just something that they think is cool that they want to send up into space. I was listening to a podcast, Hello Internet, and those guys were able to like get their flag on some sort of ship going to the moon and like left it there. But yeah, definitely like even that seems too far for like a promotional stunt. But yeah, the weather balloons got it. Do you ever see the video that Tom Scott did where he straps garlic bread to a weather balloon?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Shoots it up into the air atmosphere to make it really cold, and then when it comes down it's like really fresh and good video. But yeah, man, like I feel like just something about, hey, there's a sledgehammer and a car in the middle of the street, go get Red Faction.
Yeah, there's definitely some stuff in there that like defies common sense and like general like social convention.
Yeah. The best one I thought was the Resident Evil one. I thought that was like a good balance between like, whoa, this is weird, and like actually doing safe and cool things.
Yeah.
So shit.
Capcom does cool events. Like you should see USJ, Universal Studios Japan.
Oh God, yeah.
Like they get some really awesome Monster Hunter stuff there on top of like Nintendo World and like the Evangelion stuff they get a lot of cool stuff at Universal Japan.
Yeah. I have to stop by there on my trip to Nintendo Land.
Well, what they usually do is a Universal Studios Japan event for Monster Hunter, and in game, if you go to USJ, you get a special code, and if you put that into your game, you take your Switch there or whatever, you put that code into your game, and they give you a special event quest to hunt and get special items.
Sick.
And the great thing,
and by the way, Finn, just real quick, if you can get over there, because Japan just declared another state of emergency for COVID.
Yeah, not anytime soon, but whenever it's feasible to do so. Like, I have my own little budget ready to go, because I was planning on doing it this year before, 2020, before like everything went to shit, and I was like, I was pretty much ready to book my flights. But yeah, then things happened. But like, that money's still sitting there. I'm ready to go whenever the world opens up again, but like, obviously not before it's totally safe. Because you wouldn't want to go anyway. Like, you wouldn't want to go in like that immediate after lockdown mode, because there'd still be like this weird thing, and there wouldn't be many people around, and it'd be like you wouldn't be able to do everything that you want to do. So yeah, I'm gonna wait, but eventually I will get there. Alright, now it is time for our final segment where we look ahead to the games of the month. We're already a little bit into the month, but again, like I said at the top, it's this weird space where not much is coming out, so there's still time to catch up on a few games before we start getting into these big releases. First one on the 14th is a re-release. Scott Pilgrim versus the... Oh, by the way, I should mention that we're going to keep this going, where on this list, if there's a game where you particularly want to shout out and like basically say, like, look out for this game when it comes, you can give it a nod. So like, whenever I mention a game that you want to give a nod to, just like give it a nod. Okay. So yeah, first one, 14th of January, Scott Pilgrim versus the World, the game, complete edition. It's back. Did anyone play Scott Pilgrim initially? Because I didn't.
I never got to.
I never got to.
Yeah, I'm not as big into Scott Pilgrim as most people. So this game, I just love this from an aspect where like this game didn't exist for a long time and then it's back.
Yeah, and I like am not super big on Ubisoft anymore, but I have like art that I bought at a con from one of the artists who worked on the comics, and then Kinuko, or Mariel Cartwright, the wife of Tyson Hess, and she's one of the big artists and animators for like for formerly of Lab Zero, but now with what's the name of the group? They formed their own studio now. But she did some of the cover art for these re-releases.
Very cool. Something I'm worried about that I didn't think about until it was brought up, obviously the music, much like Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 in a way, the music very important, but also very copyrighted. And so I wonder, like, day one when this drops, like, will there be a Twitch safe mode? Even then it would sort of take away from the vibe of the game, but they should at least give you something, because, like, people are going to want to stream this game, and people are going to get DMCA'd if they...
It'll be a Twitch nightmare, again.
Yeah.
Because Twitch has to have a nightmare happen, like, on a weekly basis.
Yeah. Then, after that, on the 20th, is Hitman 3. The culmination of this Hitman trilogy, the final installment. Any Hitman fans in here? I don't know. I don't feel like we've ever talked about Hitman.
I've played very minimally some Hitman, and like I love the ideas in it, but I've just never like really taken the time. I don't think I'll get this on release, but it might be a game, like especially if they do like a trilogy thing later, I might just pick it up at some point just to really give it a run through, because I think it deserves it.
Well, here's the thing, Tim. The way I hear fans talk about this is like, you don't need to pick up the other two. This has Hitman 1 and 2 in it already.
Really?
I like, yeah, it's like a full, complete package of the whole trilogy. It's wild. And so like people are saying like, if you slept on Hitman 1 and 2, it doesn't matter. Just pick up Hitman 3 and you're good to go.
Okay, yeah, then I, especially if it hits in like a Steam summer sale, I'm definitely going to pick it up at some point.
Yeah. Put this one in for Keith on the 26th. Atelier Ryza 2, Lost Legends, and The Secret Fairy.
I'm going to give this game my nod.
Give it a nod. You've talked about this a little when we did our Tokyo Game Show discussion. Mm-hmm. How are we looking at this game like now, shaping up to release, and like why is it getting a nod above other things?
The first one, even though I haven't beaten it yet, barely gotten past the tutorial stages of the game. It's brought new life into the Atelier series, and it deserves a sequel. Even though, personally, I haven't touched the end game of the last one, I personally think it deserves its sequel. And from what everyone else is saying, the story is really great.
Cool. On that same day, then, the 26th, Cyber Shadow, published by Yacht Club Games. You might remember.
So I wasn't aware of this, so I looked it up while we've been going over stuff, and like, I can't give it a nod just because I also haven't been able to get my hands on Shovel Knight, but I will, give it John's nod because I know that if there's any game on this list that John would want to give a nod, this is probably it.
Well, that's the thing. You don't even need John's nod. I'm giving this the nod. Yeah, just very like Ninja Gaiden-esque. As far as I know, this is Yacht Club's first stint into publishing games instead of developing them. And so I feel like they have a good eye and they would want to pick something that like puts their sort of seal of approval and seal of quality on it. And just generally from what I've seen in the game so far, it looks pretty sick. So Cyber Shadow getting the nod.
And especially for $15. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I think it's on Game Pass too. Like, come on, just get in there. Then the final game on the 26th. 3 games on the 26th. It's a strong day. Stronghold Warlords. Anybody familiar with the Stronghold series?
No.
Stronghold is a game that's a little bit, it feels like it's up my alley. I've just never gotten around to it, but that community seems hyped for Warlords.
It looks to me like it's very much in the vein of like the Age games, Mythology Empires.
Yeah. That sort of thing, yeah. For classic
RTS.
sort of city building RTS, yeah. So yeah, it's going to be a thing where I could see this being like a solid 70 on Metacritic, but I feel like for the people who care about that game, that won't even matter. Like, that's what they're anticipating, and the parts that they love, they really love, and the parts that other people will criticize, like, doesn't really matter to them as much. So
yeah. I'll have to check it out because I have a group of friends that really likes playing Age of Empires, and Age 3 has been, or the definitive edition has been a little problematic for us, so that might be a alternative solution.
On the 28th then, got delayed, but it's coming now, The Medium. This is the
Silent Hill one.
horror game. Yeah, the Silent Hill-esque one, yeah.
Man, I guess I didn't even realize that it was coming out in January. But yeah, that was one that I was having my eye on. I'll have to pick that up. I assume it's coming to PS5 and whatnot.
I think they're in a deal with Microsoft. I'm pretty sure it's coming to Game Pass, and so maybe that means it's not coming to PS5? 4? Not sure.
Yeah, never mind. Yeah, it is Series X, Series S, and Windows only. Well, it's a good thing that I just upgraded my computer.
Yeah, you'll need it for this. This is, I thought about giving this the nod. I'm not sure because these were the people behind Alan Wake, and that was sort of a mixed reception. Or sorry, not Alan Wake. What am I talking about? Blair Witch. I don't know why those two got confused. They did the Blair Witch game recently, and they're also behind Observer, which was met with more praise. What I did hear about this game is that this is an idea that they've wanted to do for a while, but they wanted to wait for the technology to reach where they wanted it to be to fulfill this vision.
One of the things that gives me a little more faith in this than maybe their other projects is the fact that they did get Akira Yamaoka on it.
Yeah, he's the composer, right?
Yeah, for Silent Hill.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I feel like more often than not, you typically don't get... Well, never mind, because CDPR did get Keanu Reeves. I was going to say you typically don't get super big talent without something good to put forward for it.
Yeah, gotta impress them. And so yeah, keep an eye on The Medium. This is another one where I could see going both ways. Could be Game of the Year candidate, could be just disposable. But
yeah,
it's at least piqued my interest. And then also on the 28th, then our final game to go through, the Yakuza Remastered Collection.
So Firstly, I will say there is one other game. That one other game wouldn't get my nod. Yakuza definitely gets my nod so that people can work their way up to Yakuza 6 and see the penultimate moment of the entire franchise in the form of Rugby Baby.
Every time someone talks about Yakuza, I swear to God, feel like suddenly just the conversation morphs into a different language.
Yakuza is the largest inside joke to ever exist.
Dude, tell me about it. Come on.
And the reason I bring that up is because we were talking about GDQ. That was a donation incentive because they were speedrunning Yakuza 6, and the donation incentive for that game was that they would not skip the Rugby Baby cutscene.
Okay.
And they did meet it.
I feel like I think this is coming to Game Pass as well. I'm pretty sure I saw that in a scissor reel at the Game Awards. And so, like, I feel like as the days go by, there is less and less reasons for me to avoid the Yakuza series. And it's getting me nervous. I'm starting to sweat. It's like...
Well, and like, for example, like, one might say you should avoid Yakuza 6 because it has, like, motion control elements in it. Not going to be a thing on other platforms because they don't have motion controls. So,
yeah, until they fix that, I'm not getting in. Call it. The whole series is dead to me.
But the other game that we're missing on here, and I didn't realize it was coming out soon until a couple days ago, because it's been advertised on Games Done Quick. Disgaea 6 is also coming out on the 28th.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about that.
I actually don't know much about the Disgaea series. I know it's very beloved, very historied, but I have actually never gotten into one. I have wanted to. I have just never taken the plunge and put the money down for it.
It's the tactical RPG with hilarious elements into it, like absurd stats. Like your stats can go up to like 9,999, and you can do massive amounts of damage with special wacky skills and throw enemies off the map and stuff like that.
I know Disgaea is the game that people fail to pronounce every time they're shown it. It's like Disgaea, but that's pretty much all I know. But yeah, the fact that it's been around for so long. It's one of those games where you just hear about it every now and then. You're like, that's still going. Good for them.
Yeah, well, and then what's the name of the spinoff, Keith?
The Prinny game?
Yeah.
God, I Can Be the Hero 2 or something like that.
Yeah, it's something like that. But they have like so there's just these little like jobber like mob monsters called Prinnies, and they're just penguins. They're like the mascot of the franchise. But then they made a spin-off game that is like super difficult, and it's like an action platformer where you play as a Prinny. And the whole idea is that you're not actually playing as the same Prinny throughout, because Prinnies are so disposable that you're just dying over and over and over again, and they just send a new Prinny out.
Not enough games let you play as penguin or a penguin type creature. So that's immediately interested me.
Well, the thing is, Prinnies explode on contact.
That would be like, if I could have a superpower, I would love to just send out like loads of tiny versions of me that explode on contact like that. Like basically what you're describing with the Prinnies, it's like I would love to have a bunch of them, but like they look like me and they're tiny.
So the original was on PSP, and it was called Prinny, Can I Really Be the Hero?
Nice.
And the really funny thing is there's a collection on Switch. And it's called Prinny 1 and 2, Exploded and Reloaded.
Yeah. And so something like that is, I feel like, why I can't play Pikmin. Because I feel like that's how I would treat the Pikmin.
Disposable?
It's just completely disposable.
Yeah. Like, just do my bidding. Whatever. You don't matter. You're not human. And so, like, yeah, it's kind of got me worried about Kenna Bridge of Spirits, because I don't think I can do that to those little fuzzballs. I think I'd care too much about them already. But Prinnies, like, it seems like that's their whole purpose for being. So, like, just go. Nuts. So I think overall a quiet month ahead for January, but still some nuggets in there. Again, there's nothing that grabs me immediately, other than maybe Cyber Shadow, that like I want to play on release.
Dude, especially
so, like,
for $15.
Yeah, I think I'm in for that game. But other than that, mostly like I'm just gonna be catching up, getting ready, because like looking ahead to the calendar, I've got to like mid-March, and then Returnal comes out, and I'm gonna be headfirst into that game. But like, so I got to play as much as I can until that point. But yeah, we'll be looking ahead to all those months in future episodes of Playdate. Until then, this has been your episode for January. Thank you, Tim and Keith, for joining me for this episode. You can find us at entertheplayhouse.com, and you can follow us on Twitter at enterplayhouse. You can catch these on podcast services or on our YouTube channel along with our other video content. And we will see you for another one of these next month. Until then, goodbye and keep gaming.
Goodbye.
See you guys.